For 16 years, Hannibal ravaged the Italian peninsula. Yet Rome endured. The reason was the strategy of Quintus Fabius Maximus, who avoided direct battle and confined Hannibal's campaigns to southern Italy, particularly Calabria. His cautious approach became known as the Fabian strategy. Fabius understood Hannibal's unmatched strength and refused to risk a decisive battle. Instead, he targeted Hannibal's weak supply lines, harassing and shadowing the Carthaginian army while employing scorched earth tactics to starve them of resources. Still, Hannibal remained a formidable force. When Scipio was elected consul, he demanded a shift away from Fabian caution and toward decisive offensive action. The Senate and Fabius opposed him. In hindsight, their caution had merit, for what followed was a razor's-edge struggle between Scipio and Hannibal. Despite his youth, still in his 30s, Scipio was no ordinary commander. He believed Africa held the key to victory, recognizing opportunity in North Africa's unstable politics. Though the Senate initially resisted, an oracle's favorable omen allowed Scipio to launch an expedition. He recruited volunteers, many of them survivors of Cannae, and sailed for Africa. After setbacks, Scipio triumphed at the Battle of the Great Plains and the Battle of Cirta, establishing a puppet Numidian king. This was decisive. Carthage, reliant on Numidian cavalry, was now cut off and isolated in Africa. Rome was ready to strike at Carthage itself. The war would at last reach African soil. Carthage recalled Hannibal, who attempted last-minute peace negotiations with Scipio. But Rome refused. There was no alternative but battle. Hannibal prepared for his final gamble. Forces and formations. Hannibal commanded about 50,000 men, supported by 80 war elephants at the front, intended to terrify and shatter Rome's lines. Behind them, his veteran soldiers waited to deliver the decisive blow. Scipio's army numbered around 40,000, but he held the advantage of Numidian cavalry, giving him unmatched mobility. The battlefield was an open plain. Here, the fate of Carthage and Rome would be decided. The elephant charge, and neutralization. The battle began with the charge of the elephants. Some accounts suggest the beasts, poorly trained, panicked and crashed into Carthage's own left flank. Still, for Rome, the sight of the largest war elephant corps in the world was a dire threat. Yet Scipio was ready. He had arranged his men in columns, leaving corridors open. The elephants thundered forward, and passed harmlessly through these lanes, only to be harassed and killed by javelins and arrows once behind enemy lines. Hannibal's front line collapsed, but his army was layered by design. Hardened infantry moved forward, and the main clash of the legions began. On the flanks, Rome's Numidian cavalry drove Carthage's horsemen from the field. Encirclement and collapse. The infantry battle ground on. Hannibal's veterans in the rear line held firm, forcing Rome into a brutal, exhausting melee. For a moment, it seemed as if Hannibal might yet prevail. But then, the decisive moment came. The Roman cavalry, victorious on the wings, swept behind Hannibal's lines. At Cannae, it was Rome that had been surrounded. At Zama, the roles were reversed. Hannibal's veterans fought with desperate courage, but they were trapped on all sides. Most were slain, only a few thousand survived. The Carthaginian army was destroyed. Aftermath and lessons. Carthage, defeated, became a client state of Rome. Hannibal survived, but never again would he challenge Rome on the battlefield. Years later, when faced with capture, he chose suicide by poison rather than humiliation. Even in Rome, his death was honored, his name remembered with admiration. Scipio, now hailed as Africanus, the savior of Rome, too met an anticlimactic end. Resented by the Senate, he withdrew from politics and lived out his days in quiet retirement. Both men, heroes of one of history's greatest wars, ended their lives in obscurity, a reminder of how fleeting glory can be. The man who had encircled Rome at Cannae was himself encircled at Zama. The difference: Scipio had learned Hannibal's tactics, and used them against their master. The lesson endures: even from your greatest enemy, there is wisdom to be gained. Strategy is not only a concept of strength, but of adaptation, foresight, and humility. On the battlefield, victory belongs to those who learn fastest, even from those they fight.